Awesome. Welcome. It's great to have you with us here.
Great to be here. Thank you.
I want to tell everybody, this is Christine Till. I'm the marketing mentoress. And one of the things I love to do is to find people on LinkedIn who have a great story to share. And I met Gina on LinkedIn, and I have a little bio that I asked her to send me so that I could tell you just a little synopsis of Gina and what makes her tick. And you're going to be astounded with her story. It's absolutely wonderful. Gina Gardiner is a #1 international best-selling author, motivational speaker, empowerment and relationship coach, and transformational leadership trainer with well over 30 years of experience helping people experience happiness, success, and fulfillment. She's the founder of the newly launched Thrive Together Tribe membership and personal and spiritual development program. Oh, that sounds interesting. She has learned to walk twice as an adult. For over 20 years, Gina ran her award-winning school, for the most part, from a wheelchair. The gift of this experience was the development of a unique approach to life and the development of leadership. In 2004, Gina left headship and since then has worked with countless individuals and couples, teams, and organizations, helping them to step into their potential, to learn the lessons from the past, and to recognize that it is their choice to step into their power and live a fearless life. She is passionate about supporting people to live a truly happy, successful, and fulfilling life. Welcome to the show, Gina. It's awesome to have you with us today.
Thank you so much. I'm really pleased to be here. It's a real pleasure.
Well, I was so fascinated with your story when you shared it with me the other day. I just had to have you on my show. I went, this is going to be fantastic. And I want people to be able to, the thing is, when you share your story with people, it helps, we're all gregarious. And if we can see people's faces and hear people's stories, it helps us be able to relate to that person.
Yes, I agree.
So if we're not afraid, if we're brave like you are and willing to stand up front and talk about some of the challenges and struggles that we've had in our lives and share those with people, it helps people to realize, I'm not alone. I have struggles too. And I don't need to feel bad about that. But here's somebody that was able to solve that, and I can do just as good, if not better, with my life. So
absolutely,
hope, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I can see that's what you've done with your life. You have been a wonderful model.
Well, thank you for that.
I want to explain something to people. In North America, we refer to the head of a school as the principal.
That's right, yes.
Second is the vice principal. So your terminology is different. Can you share that with us quickly?
Yes. So if you run a school, whether that's, I believe you talk about elementary, junior high, high school.
Right.
In the UK, we talk about that person being the head teacher. It's the equivalent of a principal. It's an absolutely, you can swap one word for the other and they do the same job.
Right. So then you have a vice principal?
Yes, you do. They would be called the deputy head.
Wow.
Yes, it's absolutely translatable from one to the other. In fact, I'm not sure, but in England, the UK now, and certainly for most of my headship, we are responsible for the budget, the building, the staff, the pupils, the education, everything really. And I think from what I've read and seen in America, that perhaps in the UK, our duties were a little more far-reaching, particularly around budget.
Wow. It sounds like it. Like I can't imagine having to be in charge of the budget and construction or things like that might give changes and things that had to be altered in the school. Whoa, yes. That would be like, what went through my mind is, when do you sleep?
That's part of the problem, really. It's it's a job that's all embracing. You can't do it well, I don't think, unless it's your passion. It's not a job, it's a vocation. It wouldn't work if you were expecting to do 9 till 5.
Right. No way. Well, you know what? I wonder if it wouldn't be good for most people to think of their job more in that kind of a fashion, so that I think we'd have much better production. Everybody'd be happier. We'd probably get more raises. Well,
I think it's really interesting, you know, that it doesn't matter what you do. And one of the things for me that was so important about my school, my organization, is that everybody recognized that whatever the job they did, whether that was a cleaner or a teacher or a technician, whatever, that they were the leading professional in that field, and that they did the very best, and they felt proud about what they did, and that the whole team valued that contribution. Yeah. And often young teachers would initially dismiss those people who were taking care of the school site. And I would say to them, you know, you can walk past the toilets in this school at any day, however hot, and you never smell anything other than a pleasant smell. You
Wow.
don't want to go and clean the toilets. So value the person who's prepared to do that, and make sure that your life is actually far more pleasant as a result, because everybody has an important part to play. And I think so many people dismiss themselves in terms of what they do because it doesn't, in their mind, have high status. But in my mind, those things have very high status, because if they're not done, you soon notice. And if they're not done, then they have a negative impact on everybody's quality of life.
That's right. It does. It definitely does. So I want to ask you a few questions.
Yeah, happy to answer.
So you're a #1 best-selling author. I'm going to ask you that next. But right now, I want to find out what inspired you to become an empowerment and relationship coach.
I think it's an interesting question for me to answer, in the sense that it's not one thing, I don't think, that led me to that place. When I first became a teacher, I was absolutely determined that my pupils would have the very best opportunity to learn, and I wanted them to be happy, because I hadn't had a good experience at school myself. I was bullied at school, and I wanted a situation where those children could learn self-belief and confidence. I became a principal very early. I was only 29 when I became a principal of the largest elementary school in the district. And that passion that the children should have a good learning experience became that I wanted all of the staff and the children to have a great learning experience. And then we were one of the first beacon schools in the UK, where we then worked with other schools sharing good practice. And so I worked with hundreds of teachers and dozens of schools. And so for me, then it expanded that I wanted those people to have the very best experience. And that meant helping them to take responsibility for their own emotional well-being and their own performance. And when I left school as a head, and I started to work in my own business with individuals, couples, teams, whole organizations, in a sense, the ripple has just gone out. And so my wish and my passion to help people recognize that they have the most amazing power if they choose to step into it. But interestingly, the power is not about diminishing somebody else. It's not I'm powerful because you're weak. It is we can all be powerful together. And actually, the more we work together, the more powerful we all become.
Oh, I totally agree. That's beautiful. And I wish more school principals had that mantra in their mind, and that desire and those goals to achieve. So many of us have been bullied in school. That you raised a really interesting topic. And I'm one.
Yes.
I had no friends through school. Nobody liked me. Everybody hated me. And I was going to sit and eat worms. But, you know, it was good for me because I learned how to become strong.
And I think you've really hit the nail on the head, that any challenge in life, whether it's being bullied at school or it's learning to walk or you've got difficulties in your relationship or financial or your job, that challenge doesn't define you unless you choose it to. It can be the spur for you to do even better. It can be the catalyst for incredible and transformational positive change if you choose it. But you can also choose to be a victim to it. And I think for me, a lot of my work is you can choose to be a victim or you can choose to be a hero or heroine. Now, for me, it's a no-brainer. Why would you want to choose to be a victim when actually you can take the gift from whatever hardship, whatever the challenge is, and move it forward? And I've worked with people who've been abused, people who have had the most incredible challenges, and recognizing that they are survivors and that they have developed resilience and strength and a whole range of skills and experience from that, which they can then take forward, I believe is the gift. But if you choose to see the lack and choose to see only what you can't do, then you become the victim and your life gets smaller and smaller. And in a sense, that's at the hub of everything I do and of who I am, really, is helping people recognize we're all heroines or heroes in our own life if we make that choice.
That's right. It reminds me of a quote I posted today. It simply says, make a decision and get to work.
Yeah. And if you can make your work your pleasure, then you have a quality of life that surpasses anything that you have if you don't make your work your pleasure.
Yeah.
And even if it's not something that you want to do for the rest of your life, if you do it with real passion, then you'll get more out of it, you'll do a better job, and the chances are that will lead to other things too.
Yes, I agree. Do you mind sharing a little bit about your experience as you mentioned in your bio? You learned how to walk twice.
Okay. I became a deputy principal in 1982. Interestingly, when I went for the job, I was told, don't apply, we want a man. In those days, they could say that. But they appointed me, and I was the deputy for a year, and I was appointed to be the catalyst for change. I was the youngest on the staff bar too, and we spent the first half of the year really looking at what was going on and what needed to happen in order to move the school forward. And we got to the February, we have a week's holiday in February called the spring half term, and I went skiing. And I was a competent skier. I'd skied many times before, but I'd had a new pair of skis for Christmas. And in those days, the fashion was to have them as long as possible. And I spent most of the week wrapping the extra 10 centimeters around the neck. And I'd had a bad fall on the Thursday. And on the Friday, I said to the friends I was skiing with, you go ahead. There was a particularly nice run, which was very gentle. I'm going to get my confidence back. Met them for lunch. They said, we found a fabulous new run. Why don't you join us? So off we toddled, and they took a wrong turning. And we ended up on the most difficult black run in St. Anton called the Schindergratz, full of moguls. Now, some of your viewers, your listeners may not know what a mogul is. It's where the weather erodes the snow and you get lumps. And some of those lumps can be a couple of inches. Well, these were 6 foot on a very, very steep slope. And so the only way you could ski down was to go across, ski on the mogul, and then slide down as you turn so that you'd come back the other way. So I'd fallen because I'd left it too late, and it took me about 20 minutes to ski to my friends. They'd taken their skis off. They were all smokers. They were all having a cigarette. I've never smoked, but I sat on the mogul. It was a beautiful day, and the mogul gave way. And there was nowhere to land. I just rotated out, and I fell about 200 feet. And life has never really been the same again. I managed to ski down to the hotel with some help. We travelled back the next day, and I was taken straight to hospital. I'd got concussion. but 5 weeks later, I was back at school, and I was the deputy leader in the borough party, and we took 156 11-year-olds skiing, and I skied with them all week. But as the week went on, I became more and more like Quasimodo. And on the last afternoon, I said to my colleagues as we got back to the hotel, I'm going to have to go and lie down. And so I went upstairs and I lay, and it wasn't a posh hotel, I was in the top bunk, and I suddenly found myself paralyzed down one side. And I didn't want to frighten the children by shouting. I had to wait till somebody came to get me, which was really, really challenging. Carted off to hospital, and I gradually regained the movement then. However, I struggled with fatigue, and over the next few years they consistently looked for what was going on. My mobility was deteriorating, and they couldn't find what it was. And then they tried an experimental drug therapy. I was in hospital for 4 months. When I came out, I was using a wheelchair. And I then kept away from doctors for the next few years, but I sneezed and ruptured a disc in '96. I had failed back surgery and was completely wheelchair bound. It took me 18 months to walk to the bottom of my very little garden. 3 months later, I was sick and I ruptured another disc, failed back surgery again. And so I was wheelchair bound then until 2004, when I had an internal spinal stimulator fitted. And now I don't use a wheelchair in the house or garden. I can manage very short distances, but like today, I've been into town, I need to use my wheelchair in town. But for me, my wheelchair is an enabler. Hence the first bestseller, which was Chariots on Fire. People used to see the wheelchair as a thing of lack. For me, it's enabled me to do the things I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, I've learned to walk twice as an adult, but there'd been huge gifts in that. And the gift really came about because I couldn't physically get into my classrooms at school. So I had to find a way of empowering my staff in a different way to that which I would have done. And over the years, didn't happen in a sequential, structured way, but over the years created a structured, sequential training and development program for everyone. Most of the bits came out of necessity. And they didn't come in a nice neat package that it was at the end, but over the years built up into this approach, these principles and strategies, which I then used in the schools we worked with and have since used in a number of organizations. The widgets don't matter. It's about people. And so the principles and strategies do work if you use them. So there's been an enormous gift that's come out of all of the disability and the challenge and so on.
This is fabulous. I love the fact that you're so open to share this with us. Tell me how did you get to bestseller with your books? What was the process you went through?
I'd written Chariots is my third book. I've written 5 books altogether. And what I recognize is that writing the book's the easy bit. Getting the book out there, getting it marketed is, particularly as marketing is not my passion, nor is my thing. It's a means to an end. And I'd worked with a publisher to do that, but was very disappointed with the result. And after a bit of research, I found a guy in Australia, John North, and he is very expert at getting books to bestseller status. And so I started to work with him, and he got Chariots to bestseller, and he's got the latest book to bestseller status for me. And I'm very thrilled with that. But that's his area of expertise. And so I think there's a real lesson for us all that, if you find it something's not working, then go and find somebody who is a master of that and work with them to help you get whatever result it is you want.
I agree. We tend to be, most people, and myself included, we tend to be like lone wolves, trying to do everything ourselves. Oh, I can do that, or I can do that, I can do that, or maybe we're trying to save money or whatever. But in the long run, it doesn't pay, because if you don't know, it takes a whole bunch of time to learn it. years. In fact, if you're not involved in marketing, it
Yeah.
does. It takes years to learn it.
And for me, there are things that I am very good at. And there are times when it's worth learning it because that's part of your progress. And I'm not for a moment, as a teacher, I'm not for a moment saying to people, don't learn new skills. But I think you've got to decide which skills are going to be used. So to use a small example, in the office at school, there was a process that we had to do at the year end in terms of the finances. Very complex, shutting down one year and opening up the new. And if you got it wrong, you spent the whole year trying to put the mistakes right. So I would always buy that service in, because we only did it once a year. The chances are, even if you'd learnt it by a year later, you'd have forgotten how to do it. And many of the heads initially would say to me, but that's expensive. And I'd say, no, that's money well spent, because I know it's going to be done perfectly by people who are doing it all the time. And if there's a problem, I call them in and say, I've got a problem with what you've set up. Can you sort it out for me? And so for me, the skill is in deciding which bits to learn and which bits to delegate to other people.
Oh, maybe you should write another book on delegation, the art of delegation.
Well, in one of my other books, which is Manage Your People More Effectively, there's a big section on delegation, effective delegation.
Great.
Because it's something that people do so badly.
Oh, yeah.
They delegate, the style of delegation is it's quicker and easier to do it yourself delegation.
Yeah.
Those people who give people a job and then do it themselves anyway, because they want it done in that very specific way.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, lots of those.
Yeah, I've heard that many times. So tell us again, what are the names of your two books, that were best-selling books?
The best-selling books are Chariots on Fire,
right,
and Thriving, Not Surviving, The 5 Secret Pathways to Happiness, Success and Fulfillment. And I'd like to invite your viewers, you can get a free download of that, a digital download of the second book on my website, which is www.genuinely-u.com. So genuinely, and then just the -u.com, not the word, but just the little line. And they can get a free digital download from there.
Great. Well, this has been absolutely wonderful, being able to have you share with us, and for us to realize that there is possibility no matter who you are in life, and it's all comes from right in here, right?
It certainly does. Can I share just a story with people? Because for me, it was a pivotal moment.
Sure.
Once I'd left headship, I went and I studied NLP. I was already a coach, but I went and did some more qualifications. And having done NLP practitioner, master practitioner, and NLP coaching with the same organization, I decided to go and see lots of people and see how they used it. And I went to a course with Tony Robbins at the Excel Centre in London. 10,000 people on the course. And part of that course, Unleash the Power Within, was to do a fire walk. Now, bearing in mind at this time, I could stagger a very few steps on my own. I was absolutely thrilled to manage the fire walk with a bit of help. And as I sat down, the guy behind me was a double amputee, and he tipped himself onto his hands and he walked the fire walk on his hands. Now, earlier that day, Tony Robbins had been talking about a course in California that I'd really fancied, but I'd dismissed. And I'd said, can't manage that. It's too much. I saw that guy walk on his hands. I went and I booked my ticket on the course, and I booked my flight, and I went off and I did the course, and it was great. And since then, done all his courses and lots of other courses, have been all over the world traveling on my own to do things. I'm so grateful to that guy. I have no idea who he is. What I would say to your viewers and listeners, the only thing that limits you is you. If you believe you can, you're halfway there. If you believe you can't, well, it's a done deal. And so I would say to you, all of you, don't underestimate yourself. Challenge yourself. in a really constructive and positive way, because you can do more than you think you can. Now, I've done a TV series, and again, if people go to the website, they can sign up for free to see the TV series, which covers all sorts of themes which are in the book. And if they find that easier than reading, then that's available to them too. There's lots of free stuff on the website that people can sign up for, and I'd like to invite your people to do that.
Thank you. This is fabulous. I have just totally enjoyed talking with you. Once I read your books, I'm going to want to talk to you again and have you on the show again.
That would be my pleasure. Be lovely.
This is
Thank you very much.